We do on mute, and that's just to ensure the audio quality of the event and the recording is as good as it possibly can be. I know my voice is probably an octave lower than normal, so that's not a problem with the audio. That's a problem with some germs that I managed to pick up. Thank goodness for video that none of you can catch this over the computer. So today we're focusing on retirement and some goal planning scenarios related to it. And before we get started, I do want to say a massive thank you for those of you that took the time to do the survey at the conclusion of the last learning event. Your suggestions were super helpful, and also a couple good chuckles for me in there in terms of a couple people were quite clever about their trickies. So you know who you are. I don't know who you are, but it was really quite funny. I had a good laugh. So we're going to spend the next hour looking at the two scenarios that we provided. Some of the feedback that you asked for was to include more screenshots or looks at the experience. I know most of you would rather be working in the tool. Unfortunately, the tool won't be ready for consumption or practice or live use for at least another month yet. So because of that, we're trying to give you as much as we can and get you ready with the thinking and the logic behind the tool in these events. In addition, I'll share some insights and some very specific quotes from some of the team submissions that came in that I thought were particularly relevant and insightful. I don't know the full team names, but I will make a reference of when your team's response is being quoted by one of the members on your team. All right. So if you have any questions, by all means, the quickest way is to simply type in the instant message box. So if you're not seeing that, I would encourage you to bring that up. And then I want to do a quick check-in. I don't see her on the line yet, but I want to make sure we want to make sure that Bev Farnsworth can see. I know that last time she had problems with viewing the actual screen. So Jeanette, if you could keep an eye and see if and when Bev Farnsworth joins, if you can just do a quick check with her, maybe by pinging her to ensure she can see the screen. Thanks. All right, so diving right in, we have two characters. And the first one is Gloria, and of course you learned that in the scenario that Gloria is 35 years old. Her plan is entirely focused on retirement, and what you learned is she wants to retire by age 60. She makes about $60,000 today, and she has gone with the recommended target retirement income of $42,000, and learned that it would cost her just a shade under $1.4 million. And I think what you're probably starting to see is a little bit of a theme or a trend in the amount that goals cost. And so what was the question? Well, the question from Gloria is, what option should I choose in the field that asks about my expected CPP benefit? I'm not sure whether I should choose the average or the maximum, and is there an easy way to figure this out? So both about their private pensions and about the government pensions where we need a response from them. So, for example, CPP expected, we're going to ask them if they're not eligible, if they should receive the average Canadian amount or the maximum. So, in this case, curious, when you have the debate, what's the easiest way to determine, can't see the slides? There. Let's just make sure that everyone can share. Okay. I'm going to share it again just to make sure. I don't really want it. This is completely my fault. My brain is pretty soggy. Let's just reload it. I'm reloading it, people, just to make sure. Same error. Give it a second. It takes a bit to process. All right. When you guys can see it, you let me know. Not the error, but the actual PowerPoint. I'm back at the title slide. All right. So it looks like we're back on track. Apologies for the delay. So we already checked in on Gloria's retirement scenario. So the question was around her CPP benefit, and I was showing you a picture of what her choices look like. And so my big question for you folks, and I'm going to try and get more people involved, but in this question we're asking, what's the difference? When should somebody choose the average, and when should somebody choose the maximum in terms of CPP? Ideas or suggestions? Christy's suggestion is put in the maximum, maybe closer to retirement when you have a better idea. So you could choose something now, and of course it's something that you should definitely update over time. You bet. That's a great response, Christy. Average if they plan to take some time off, and maximum if they plan to work their entire career. Yep. Pardon me. I'm going to try and tough my way through this one. This is just pure determination at this point. Okay. Well, in fact, there's two factors that will affect whether you should be choosing average or whether you should be choosing maximum. And Glenn's right. One is how much you contribute. And he's quoted the YMPE, which is an awesome acronym for the year's maximum pensionable earnings. And it's the figure that, if you look it up, it changes every year, but it's the dollar amount where you max out your CPP contributions. So some people will pay CPP contributions, and at some point in the year, they'll actually max them out. So when they do their tax return, they're getting the maximum CPP deduction on their tax returns. If you keep hitting that maximum every year, it's a sign that you're almost assured of getting the maximum amount, providing that you also have contributed for the right number of years. So because it is a pay-in plan, if your contributions are lower because your earnings are lower, then it's probably appropriate to select more the average Canadian. So we know that today she's making about $60,000. So that's the first sign that says, yeah, she's probably closer to the maximum. But we also might want to ask her if she's had any periods where she wasn't working, how long has she been working in Canada, those kinds of things might be a good hint. Interestingly enough, the CPP plan does have adjustments for those that, those that have had times where they haven't been working. So here's the thing, we don't want them to worry about anything to do with the timing of when they start taking CPP, because we're doing that more automatically behind the scenes. But we do want them to think about, are their contributions in line with the maximum, and have they been contributing to the plan for some period of time? Because those two factors are what's going to influence them. All right. So what factors then influence whether they are likely to receive old age security benefits in the future? So when you had this conversation, what kinds of topics came up in your group debate? Income and residency. Yeah, it's true, right? Income and residency. Christy and Coco were right on the money. So the reason income comes up is because there's a clawback feature to the old age security benefit. So depending on how much income you're planning to receive, some or all of it may be clawed back. And then the other aspect is residency. So does anybody know how many years you have to be a resident in Canada after the age of 18 in order to qualify for full old age security benefit? 40, yeah. 10 is when you can start to get partial benefits, but 40 is the maximum. So if you've got at least 10 years of residence in Canada after the age of 18, you are eligible to receive old age security pension while you're living in Canada. If you're going to take that pension while you're living outside of Canada, you have to have lived in Canada and been part of our workforce for at least 20 years. So there's a little bit of a distinction there. But 40 is that full pension mark. So if somebody has, we're a country of immigrants. So if somebody has joined Canada like partway through their work life, it could influence them partially. Obviously, that's a lot of complexity to add to a program. And all these security benefits are on what I would call on the smaller end of the resources that people have. If people are asking questions about old age security benefits, I would certainly encourage them to go to the Service Canada site. And in fact, while they're in the experience, if they click on the little help icon, we provide a link to go directly there, because it's not that simple. But it is true that the things you want to probe around are probably residency, if people are asking questions, and income. But more importantly, let's get them connected to the Service Canada site so they can get customized answers that are appropriate to them. We do include old age security benefits for people who are planning for a lower income level in retirement. And we know that it's not likely to kind of fuss with their results too much. Does anybody have a guess in terms of what's the average old age security pension amount on a monthly basis right now? Yeah, it's actually about $516 a month, Christy, so you're bang on. That's the average. The maximum is $550, just a shade under $550. So even if you include it, we're talking $6,000 a year. It's not a significant amount in today's dollars. So something to be aware of. If somebody who is, for example, a very recent immigrant, we're going to automatically include OAS as an option or as a resource in their plan. The worst case for that is that they might be out a few $1,000s a year, but over a long period of time, it's not a significant risk to the accuracy of their plan, which is good. A great quote here that from one of the teams. I thought this was Anton's team. The more accurate we can be with your forecast, the better. And again, it is a forecast, so we don't want to give people the illusion that this is the answer. It is a forecast. It's about trying to predict. We're not trying to get the number. We're trying to get a general sense of how close you are. But if you do want to make your forecast even more accurate, you can go right to CRA and they can get a forecast of your specific expected pension benefits, which might be worthwhile to do. So good comments and observation from the group that Anton's was with. All right, so we moved on then to question 3. And Gloria, in total Gloria fashion, wants to improve her lifestyle in retirement. So she asks, how much more should I increase my target income from the default setting? And should I do it now or wait until I see my forecast? And so let's check in with somebody. So let's ask Julie or Rita, if you wouldn't mind typing in an answer into the little instant message box. If somebody was saying, hey, I want to improve my lifestyle, how much more than the 70% should I put in, and should I do this now or later? What advice would you guys give to somebody? Let's see if this actually works. If Rita and Julie can actually, oh, they're both typing. Look at that. And I can see you guys typing. And next time I'll call your names before I ask the question so that you can start thinking about your response. Yeah, Rita would probe around, what do you mean by improved lifestyle? Because that could mean marginal. I mean, it might mean I want to take an extra trip a year. And then you simply say, well, how much is that trip likely to cost? Are we talking like the Sandals vacation? Are we talking about a driving trip through the U.S.? Is this a week? Is this a month? Because you could probably quickly then say, well, it's that 70% plus a $5,000 or $10,000 trip a year, and you can add that in quite quickly. So Rita's comment about, how much, let's just understand what that means to you. And Julie would say do it now, and I would agree with that, Julie. I think one of the key things, this is your plan or this is your dream. I would always encourage somebody to put their real dream in, which would include their lifestyle in retirement. And in fact, what I've got here is a picture of the page that when you're entering your goal, it's asking you very small pieces of information. So you start by selecting the type of goal. In this case, I chose retirement. I labeled my goal, put my target age, put my income today, and it gave me a default. This help that pops up is explaining that financial planners use 70% of what you'll need to maintain your current lifestyle. But please do update it with what you want to earn if you are retiring today. And that's the key. And that can be very helpful. All right. Good responses. Thank you to both Julie and Rita. All right. So Gloria continues on, and now she's at the part of the process where she's seeing that originally, remember, she had $1.39 million to get her goal. She had a shortfall of about $642,000. She was about halfway there. She determined her profile and then selected a strategy. So you'll note she got a profile of moderately aggressive investor, but she chose a growth strategy, which is not the recommended, but is one of the two alternatives. In fact, the one more aggressive alternative that's offered to a moderately aggressive investor. So her solution ends up being Compass Growth Portfolio, and her revised shortfall is $376,000. So it means that she has to put in about $542 more a month. So let's go with Andrew or Shane. Her question is, I understand that my new strategy is contributing significantly to my goal, and so to the tune of where she had a $642,000 gap, now she only has a $376,000 gap. So it's taking care of pretty close to half of her total shortfall. It's just the new strategy. Can you help me better understand why that is and what I need to do to receive the full benefit? So Andrew said, I would have a contribution around TVM. TVM. What's TVM, Andrew? Maybe that's an acronym I'm going to learn today. Oh, time value of money. Thank you. You guys make acronyms out of stuff I would never guess. Yeah, so time value money, and based on market growth, the higher equity component results in lower required savings. So in order to really receive the benefit, Shane and Andrew are bang on. It's the power of the length of time she has and the fact that she's expecting to earn a higher long-term rate of return with the Compass Growth Portfolio than how she's invested today, and it's clearly quite significant. So what does she need to do? Well, really, she needs to change all of her holdings over. So if I was peeking in at Gloria's plan, I could pop back to the second stage where she put in her investments, and I see that she's got $15,000 in a balanced portfolio that she contributes monthly $500 to, and a $5,000 GIC that she's not contributing regularly to, but those are the two existing holdings. So what she needs to do in order to capitalize and really get the full benefit, that dropping 642 to 376, is she needs not only to put this new 542 into her Compass Growth Portfolio, but she'd also need to focus on converting Holdings 1 and Holdings 2 into this plan. And remember, this is her only goal, so she doesn't have any other goals that she's worried about, but certainly we'd want to see adjustments of all of her existing holdings, her current saving habits, and the increased new habit in order for her to get the full benefit, financial benefit. Any questions on that one? Anyone typing? All right. You guys said some of this seemed like a review and you felt pretty confident, so I'm not going to try and belabor the point, but please do ask clarifying questions, because chances are my cold and my brain are too foggy and I'm not explaining it very well, and if it's not making sense to you, it's probably I need to explain it in a different way. All right. So in question 5, and let's invite Keenan and or Raiden to give us their insights here, but Gloria's asking about that $542 each month. And she's really saying, does it really matter if I make this contribution each year from my bonus instead of each month? Because we present our recommendation as a monthly amount, and she's saying, why can't I do that just once a year when I get my bonus? So Raiden or Keenan, if this client was, if Gloria was asking you that question, how might you respond? I'll let you type while I bring up an image. So kind of something like Gloria might be seeing is at the end, we show the fact that you need $1.4 million to get your goal. Without implementing your plan, these lines would be further apart because we knew that she had about 50% gap, and about just under half of that was closed with her new plan. And so she's looking at quite a significant benefit. Raiden has suggested, let's talk about dollar cost averaging and adjust the monthly amount if needed and top up once a year. Yeah, so I think that certainly is a great suggestion. So when you combine the two, so here's the two things that might work. So if you think about a year as this tiny little picture of a timeline, each one of these individual ticks, I'm not sure if there's 12, please don't count them, would represent a month in the year. And what Raiden is saying is, if you contribute each month through dollar cost averaging, you could find that there's a benefit in that as equity prices, mutual fund values tend to increase over time. If you buy a little bit each month, on average, your unit price will be lower. Now, the way you kind of throw a wrench in that is if you, instead of thinking about doing the buying kind of into your plan at the end of the year with your bonus, you did it with your bonus at the beginning of the year. Because I think financially, if I was investing for 25 years and expecting kind of that 5% rate of return, if I did it each month versus what I would call in arrears, it's kind of at the end of the year, there's a pretty significant difference to the tune of pretty close to $12,000 over 25 years just in returns by doing it each month as opposed to waiting to the end of the year. So it's no small amount. I mean, $12,000 is 1% of your goal just by getting the timing right of your contribution. If instead, though, I do it at the beginning of the year and compare that to each month, the difference is only about $3,000, and the benefit obviously is doing it at the beginning of the year. So if we can get Gloria to put her lump sum in at the beginning of the year, it actually could be of benefit to her. Now, she loses the benefits of dollar cost averaging. She would be averaging, her average would be on an annual basis. So if you really are passionate and you believe that the benefits of dollar cost averaging are going to be greater than the lift she'd get by contributing early, then you could make an argument for each month. In this case, if that is really the best way for Gloria, just please do it like that annual, take it out of your bonus. Please do encourage her to do it in advance and never in arrears, because that's the big difference. It's sooner rather than later. Even a 1-year difference in your time frame is a big deal. Yeah, and Jackie Cullen had a great suggestion. You know, do an investment loan at the beginning of the year, and then you can use your bonus to pay off that investment loan. And Christy raises a good risk in that what if she's tempted to spend the bonus? You know, one of the things that a lot of businesses offer, and we're hoping to actually, once we have this platform up and running, is if we can get direct to businesses, we can make it so much more affordable for people to save for long-term retirement goals with things like group plans and things like that. Because if the business owner could redirect the bonus directly to the retirement savings plan, it could go there without any tax removed from it. So very much like our plan within ATB Financial, if you send in your notification to ESC, you can get your bonus redirected to your RSP and there's no tax removed from it, which means you can contribute a bigger amount, not waiting for your tax returns and all that other stuff. So which addresses Christy's point that she might be tempted to spend it. Yeah, and then this question, is it guaranteed? Aging is. Ouch. That's kind of a little ouchy, isn't it, Glenn? Aging is guaranteed, but your bonus may not be. Whatever the plan is, we want it affordable We want it something she will stick to, and that's kind of the conversation, because the only poor choice here is doing it once a year at the end of the year. That's the real poor choice. Financially, if you compare a bonus at the beginning of the year to doing it on a monthly basis, they come out actually pretty even. Coco's laughing at Glenn's joke about aging, which I thought was funny too, Glenn. Okay, so 2 comments here just to wrap it up. Dollar cost averaging is a great topic if somebody's asking, why are you suggesting each month? But if they're saying, hey, it fits better for me to do a lump sum, let's encourage them to get in advance as opposed to at the end of the year, because, like I said, even just a small rate of return over a long period of time, that's easily 5 figures that you're just letting go of because you're just not getting started fast enough. All right, so on to question 6, and so I will invite, let's see, Joe or Lucinda or Vince, any one of you 3. So what Gloria is now asking is, for the amount I decide to put into an RSP, should this be in my RSP, or should I have my husband Jay put this in the spousal RSP that he has opened for me? So it's kind of starting to talk about the, putting the plan into action and the account types and what is reasonable. So while those folks type kind of some of the reflections from the group work that they had, one of the things that we will do is when somebody goes to put a plan into action, we certainly will provide them with educational videos on account types. And a big shout out to the Client Experience Committee, because in addition to the account type video, they've done great work on net worth video, and they're quite wonderful, as well as one on fees. So we've got such robust materials now in terms of educating people on the common topics that trip people up. I'm super excited about it. So I'm just checking in. Lucinda is typing. Joe's was typing. Oh, there it comes. Okay, so Lucinda said, I would ask some income currently to give them some ideas on which would be best for their tax situation. However, I'd want to confirm with their accountant and see some other things about their contribution room. More questions about who and how this would benefit them most. Yeah, I think one of the key things is, if you haven't heard it before, really none of us, I'm a professional accountant. I actually have an accounting designation, and I am not qualified to give tax advice. The Tax Act is this thick, and even though I have an accounting designation, it's not even the kind of designation that would permit me to provide somebody with tax advice. They really need to talk to a specialist, and there's so much going on in terms of what could affect that, that it could take you easily an hour, and you'd have to know all the right questions, and it's really not part of your professional training to provide advice around tax. I think what you could do is clarify the difference between a spousal RSP and kind of who has to have contribution room in general terms. But here, big caution, super big caution, because you don't have a sense of, at this point, what their picture will look like in retirement, what income they might be able to split in retirement, because unlike pension income, RSP income can't be split once you're retired to equalize things. So I would encourage you to know kind of the general components of it, but I would caution you strongly against providing specific advice, and certainly you do want to encourage people to get advice from a qualified accounting professional. Just like we wouldn't expect an accountant to tell them what investments to buy, we shouldn't be providing any advice that gets into detailed tax brackets. Now, there are articles, so great article written by Chris Turchansky on our Invest site around income splitting, simple ways to maximize your retirement income. That, again, we want to educate around the concepts, but pretty dangerous to be saying, hey, Gloria, yeah, you should be using the spousal account that Jay opened for you. it certainly would be something that I would feel comfortable with personally, and I would caution you again on that as well. All right, so the last bit of Gloria's scenario is that while chatting online with Gloria, you learn that her husband Jay, who's 52, also created his retirement plan. So obviously he was on there doing it either at the same time or at a different time. And she's kind of let it drop to you that he has he's fortunate. It must be easier for him to get his goals because he has a pretty big pension funding most of his needs. He's not as aggressive as she is because his profile is moderate, and he's selected a balanced strategy. And this is important, and you would use this information to provide advice to Gloria and Jay because, so anybody have some ideas? How would you respond to the question about chatting with Gloria and Jay and you learn this little bomb dropper? There was lots of great insights in the group work, I know. We said that they need to do some joint planning due to their age difference. Yeah, so I hope most of you picked up on that. The fact that he's 52 and she's 35, and kudos to our learning group who chose the Modern Family group because it's pretty recognizable, but a little bit of a May-December relationship here. Lucinda's saying, I wish we could do a joint plan. Actually, a joint plan is almost the worst thing you can do, and the Dream Plan tool really failed in this respect because anytime, especially when you have significant age differences, I wouldn't recommend doing a joint Dream Plan tool even. I'd still do them separate because it's super risky. Plus, we really do want, because registered accounts, yeah, if their ages were closer, for sure, Lucinda. But really, we'll show you kind of when we get into later stages, everybody's situation is very different, and Gloria and Jay each need to understand their own investor profile, get their own education, and make their own choices. And with 96% of our accounts being registered, their accounts are single. So they need to talk and put their plans together, I think is what Lucinda is saying, is they need to have a cohesive plan of action as a household. So if Gloria is saying, I want better than a 70% income lifestyle in retirement, her and Jay better have had that conversation. And who's contributing what? And are they synchronizing their retirement dates? And all of those kinds of things. Lots of people are talking about FA. Yeah, I'm starting to hear shades of complexity here. And the reason I'm seeing it is, for me, I have a big concern about life expectancy. And what's probably happening, if you think in their household right now, Gloria's 35. If Jay's got a sizable pension, it probably means he might be the higher income earner in the household. And if you know much about survivor benefits, she could be at big risk. So if, for example, he's significantly older, if he passes on, she might only get half of his pension once he does pass on, if anything, or maybe it's an election. So as soon as you get into this scenario, it means that her $42,000 that she's thinking, I know in her head she's thinking that's her share of, the larger pot. But it would be worthwhile for these folks to think about how to best protect their retirement scenario, their retirement plan. Christy's comment about insurance. Insurance might be, it is one of the more common routes for people to go, and especially when they have larger pensions with survivor benefits. But they both should have a plan, and they both should communicating to each other and talking about what could go wrong with this plan. And one of the things that with Jay being so much older and women having a longer life expectancy, they should anticipate that Gloria will have to be able to support her targeted lifestyle, potentially without some of his pension income, even as a survivor. So a really interesting scenario that is quite common, I think. And a lot of people haven't put a lot of thought into what happens with their pension. I know I had a great conversation with my father-in-law, who's a retired Mountie, and he hadn't really thought about it in terms of what that might mean for his spouse if and when he passed away before her. All right. So I did want to share some of the really cool comments that came in. So the first one was from Tracy's group. She was talking about Gloria's scenario, and she said that, again, recommend to go and see the accountant to find out about, what's going on in terms of, is it a spousal RSP? And she also talked about, the life insurance, disability, and estate planning, and what might happen if one income was lost. So a lot of the threads of what we were talking about. Shane's team said, gosh, she seems so confident about completing her retirement goal. Maybe we should talk to her about education savings. Like maybe we should say, I get that you were super focused on retirement and it seems like you're on track, and maybe this is the time to start encouraging her to focus on any additional goals. Exactly. Shane's saying, what about poor Manny? And he's a bright kid, but you're going to need to provide for some education. And then Rayton's team actually started talking about not just insurance, but long-term care and, healthcare directives and things like that. And so just to make it brilliantly clear, when she retires at 60, he's going to be 77. So just at the point where she's retiring, he's certainly at an age where you might expect for additional healthcare costs and things like that. All right. So brilliant, and thank you for sharing and for the tip that some of you wanted to see more specific comments from some of the other teams. All right, so we're going to introduce some polling now. So you're going to have to, if you haven't already got active, you're going to have to start working. I'm going to share a poll, and you guys are going to be able to type your answers in. So you'll see a poll on your computer right now. I'm going to ask you each, I'm going to open it first. I have to do that somehow. Poll is open. Thank you, Jeanette. There you go. So the poll is open. Everybody start making your choices in terms of how much time do you think the average Albertan spends on retirement goal planning. So do they spend a lot of time, some time, or not enough time? And thank you for the questions. These came courtesy of our committee. Our mastery committee actually said, hey, here's what we think a reasonable question is. All right, so let's publish these poll results somehow. Poll is closed. Results are shown. Thank you, Jeanette. Well, all of you agree. That's pretty common that the average Albertan doesn't spend enough time on retirement goal planning and does not have a good understanding. And if you dig at the why, everybody wants to retire. Lottery sales wouldn't be as good as they are today if people didn't really want to retire. It's just so complicated, and we need to make it simple. We need to kind of take the mystery out of it, but not make it such a daunting task. So we need to be able to, again, get it to a tight amount of time and educate people slowly over time, giving them what they need and when they need it, because not everybody are super geeks like me and maybe some of you that you just love the subject and you could talk and learn about it over and over. All right, let's start poll number 2. So someone's going to launch this poll. It is open. So how often do you think the topic of Canada Pension Plan will be asked by Albertans creating a retirement goal plan? So is it very often, sometimes, or not very often? Let's get a little bit of a variety of responses. A little bit of everything going on here. There you go. All right. Well, we think we've got most of the answers, so we'll close that and let you see them. So an equal split is where it ended up. So, a lot of you are thinking this is going to be a common question, or at least asked sometime. Lucinda can't see the poll. I'm not sure how to help you, Lucinda. I'm sorry. Maybe Jeanette will give you a tip in a private chat box. I'm not sure how to help in the middle of the event. Oh, it's closed now. Okay, Lucinda's, I think, she's good. It was just us opening the poll. So the tricky thing with the Canada Pension Plan is we don't want you to be the expert resource on Canada Pension, but we do want you to feel pretty comfortable in asking the most, kind of responding to the most common questions including perhaps redirecting or providing the links, whether that be in a chat or in a follow-up email, to Service Canada site. So if I were you and in preparation for the goal planning advisor role, I might put into my development plan kind of brushing up on Canada Pension if that wasn't a subject that I felt super confident with today. All right. Well, let's head back into, let's hope this, it even took me to the right page. Ta-da! Can somebody please confirm that you are seeing Doug's retirement scenario? Just to make sure I didn't screw up the technology. Thank you, Tracy. And Mel. All right, so on to our next scenario. So Doug is in an interesting scenario. He's 52 and he works for the city. He is entitled to his employer pension as early as age 55. His wife Carrie is 48 and she's worked a whole bunch of different jobs while raising Jack and Jeff, who are now on their home, away from home and living on their own. So in this case, Doug is kind of doing the planning process. He makes 120 today and Carrie makes 50. He has put in a target retirement income of $120,000 and learned that a retirement of that amount is going to cost him just about $2.7 million. And now he's got some questions. So the first question, and let's invite, I'm going to say Anton or Garrett. Let's see if you can give us a hand. And this is kind of that guessing game. And Garrett always gives me a hard time. He's like, you ask us questions that are about the tool. Why don't you just tell us the answer? But I'm hoping that by kind of thinking about what is it you would do if you were designing this, that you won't really need to remember or memorize kind of the training bit. It will just feel more intuitive because there'll be a deep understanding. So, sorry, Garrett. Another one of these questions. So, will the calculation include my eligibility for OAS, and at what income level would I not receive it? Garrett's giggling at my apology. So, what do you think? Do we automatically include? Anton says, yes, I hope so. And Garrett says, I assume it does. And this is the one case that, yes, we include it. We look at their income and their target income, so not their current, but what they're targeting in retirement. And basically, if their target income in today's dollars falls between $71,000 and $115,000, we would do the automatic clawback of their OAS eligibility. And so in this case, because Doug is putting that $120,000 in income into kind of this one plan, it's going to claw back all of it. So there will be no OAS included in there. Now, having said that, because he does have a pension, and this is not all individual retirement savings, this means that the system's going to claw back all the old age security eligibility because it thinks it's a one person earning a high level of income. They actually might be eligible for some, because if you think about if the lion's share of their income is his pension, and they're able to split that, and they have a good balance in retirement individual savings, $120,000 is actually $60K a person. So in fact, in terms of old age security, they actually might get a bit of a boost. If it's actually $60 per person, it wouldn't necessarily claw it all back. But a single plan with $120,000, it doesn't know that that's for two people. So something to keep in mind, but it's not, will that be caught in the plan, is the question. Yeah, Jackie's saying, if you're already planning for $120K, $6,000 a year is definitely not going to be a big deal. If somebody's asking specifically about, well, how can I see what the impact it would be, instead of Doug doing a single plan for $120, Doug would do a plan for $60, and Carrie, his wife, would do a plan for $60, and then they would see that the shortfall is not the same. So that is certainly one thing that they could do if they're interested. But yes, we automatically include it. we consider that the goal is for a single person, and we include all the clawback rules. And you're right, you know, the one thing we intentionally exclude is the guaranteed income supplement, or GIS, because we know that with proper planning, we hope none of our clients could qualify for that. That would be the ideal, wouldn't it? All right, so let's see. Bev or Edith, or who haven't I heard from? Or any one of the leaders if they're interested. Carrie is making pretty good money, but there were times when we were raising the boys that she did not work. So how might this affect her CPP eligibility? Thoughts? The hell with the water while you guys think about it. Michelle says she will be able to use her dropout years. You at 8. Childbearing years, yeah. You guys have got it. Okay. So there's a couple things that would apply specifically to Carrie, is that when calculating your CPP eligibility, Revenue Canada will exclude the years when you were raising children who were under the age of 7, which is important. So, you know, if you stayed home until your kids were in university, you know, once they were past 7, if you were still staying home and not working, you don't get any benefit at that point. And in addition, we also get a break where the 15% of our lowest income years are dropped, which kind of says, hey, we get that when you started out, you might have been working at Dairy Queen, which was my first job. And then if I work long enough, my Dairy Queen years of employment should drop off and they will not affect my CPP benefit, which is great. So the effect of that exclusion is that you actually get a better entitlement for CPP. The key here again is don't worry about the timing of when we take it. We're just trying to make sure that we reassure Doug and Carrie in this case that, yes, there were probably times where she was raising her boys that she didn't work. And there shouldn't be a significant impact on her CPP eligibility unless that extended well past the period where the kids were under the age of 7. And again, refer them to the Service Canada website because that will help them. And Bev gave everybody a tip that if you know folks that are in this situation, you might want to encourage them to apply for that exemption through Service Canada. And old age security, interestingly enough, there's not much of a difference between maximum and the average, but when it comes to Canada Pension Plan, the average and the maximum, there is a pretty significant difference in those amounts. So which might actually help somebody's dollar amount of entitlement increase. Okay, I am trying to enter my pension details. So this is Doug. And after watching the video on your site, I'm still a bit confused. So on the site, just to give you a little, I know you guys like to see snippets of the site, so here's a little snippet. So we basically have a video that describes the difference between a defined contribution and a defined pension plan. And if they choose defined benefit, they get a field that asks them for what's their pension income expected on an annual basis. And of course, we're asking about CPP. If instead they say defined contribution, then we're asking what the value is today and how much they contribute each year. So, yikes. In this case, Doug pulled up his pension statement and it's saying that it shows both my contributions and my estimated monthly pension at age 65. So he's getting a little confused because he's seeing both, which can happen occasionally. Which type of pension does Doug actually have based on what you hear him saying? Anyone? Yeah, anytime you see somebody giving a forecast, estimated monthly pension at a 65, always defined benefit. So in this case, for sure, we know that Doug has a defined benefit. We don't need him to fact us anything. We automatically know. All right. So questions 4 and 5, I actually combined because I felt they were so similar in terms of how we might address them in this learning event. So question 4 had asked, Carrie's going to be starting her retirement before she's even eligible for CPP. That's a pretty young retirement. Lucky Carrie. Do we need to make any savings adjustment for this? Which the related thing is, I know if I take an early pension, my CPP will reduce. Does this process, does the tool assume that I'll be taking CPP at retirement age or waiting until 67 when I'll get the full amount? All right. So what's going on here? Well, in this case, if you think about this as a timeline, there's a point where you can get early CPP, and that might change over time. There's the normal CPP, which is the unlabeled tick in the middle here. Which is this one right here. Or you can go for a deferred CPP, which if you're very patient, you can actually get a premium on your CPP. Or you can take it early, but it's at a discounted rate. In this case, Carrie's retirement is even before early CPP. So the two questions are, do they need to do any adjustments because of that? And when are we assuming, in terms of our math and the calculation, that she's going to start taking that CPP? When is she going to start? So, guesses? I'll take any guesses. I'm not going to pick on anyone specifically for this one. Tool adjust based on retirement age. Goal retirement age assumes early and or late. Yeah, so if retirement age falls anywhere in between kind of early or late, we then assume that they're taking it out at the point of retirement. So if their retirement age fell within this zone, then we just start it when they start retirement. We assume CPP starts being paid at the point of retirement. If they are planning a retirement after this deferred point, so back out here, we do assume that they actually get the benefit starting here. They're not going to not take CPP. I don't know who would ever do that. That's a pretty rare circumstance. But in the case of retirement, we do assume that Carrie would start taking her early CPP at the earliest point where she's eligible, even though she might have retired at 55 when she wasn't eligible for CPP. We do the math that says we calculate the value of this early CPP, then we bring it back to the value at retirement so that we can offset it against some of that, what did we say, 2.74 million that these two need for their retirement. So the key for us, of course, is in Doug and Carrie's situation, we would definitely recommend that they both have their individual plans so we can do this custom adjustment. So we need to know that Carrie's early CPP is maybe not the same as Doug's. Maybe Doug's getting the full amount. That's why we really suggest the two have separate plans and not try and group them in the same plan. But yeah, the short answer is the tool assumes that you take CPP at retirement age or at the early CPP age if it's later. So that. If I explained that well? Gosh, doesn't feel very articulate. You guys probably know all this stuff anyway, what you assumed. Oh, thanks, Christy. Good to go. All right. Obviously, my head cold isn't as bad as I thought. I'm kind of making sense. All right, in question 6 then, Doug is asking, I'm also interested in leaving an inheritance for the boys when we pass on, and how would we include this in our plan? Well, one of the great comments from Coco's team was actually considering using an insurance plan. It's a more complex planning strategy, but it does allow you to have that peace of mind that you can have these things happening concurrently. And really, you know, most other alternatives, if you pass away very early and unexpectedly, you might not leave as much of an inheritance as you would hope for. So sometimes an insurance program can actually help with that. The other two alternatives then are thinking of your non-financial assets. and considering those as part of your inheritance. And so in this case, in the tool, we do ask people about their non-financial assets and liabilities, and we combine that with their financial assets to get their net worth. Excuse me. Because, for example, the family home or some of the other more expensive resources might be something that you could use to create an inheritance, depending on the size. And then the final component is certainly a very specific financial asset. So even though if I have a retirement plan, I could actually start a program to say, well, how much, if it was a certain amount in today's dollars, how much would that be in the future? And start a savings plan with a goal. So I could enter a new goal that was just the inheritance for the boys, put it at age 80 or whatever age I wanted, and kind of start a little nest egg savings for them. Now, anytime somebody's thinking about this, and particularly if they're looking at insurance as a solution, or outside their retirement, or lifestyle type savings, to me, those are big, big clues that this person needs to speak or work with a financial advisor or an insurance advisor for the complexity of their plan. So this would be a good cue of when somebody probably should be sitting down with one of our partners and going through this specific goal and requirement in terms of what are your options and plan choices together. We know that they have a fairly significant pension. They're both making very good income. It might be worthwhile at this point to start looking at how can we help connect these two who might have a preference for online, but based on their needs, if we feel very strongly that they're only going to be able to solve this problem by working with a financial advisor or an insurance advisor, each one of you is empowered to require the client to go and speak with the client, the advisors, other advisors. And Jackie raises a good point. A well-structured insurance plan can actually be a tax-free solution as opposed to going through your estate and all the complexities there. Typically, only a massive concern for those who get into that mass affluent space. So our typical clients who are mass market usually don't have the same type of tax consequences on death. And yet, if you've got a lot of fixed assets, so watch that net worth bubble. If you're seeing really high numbers in that net worth, they could be at risk there as well. All right. So the final chapter in the Doug's retirement scenarios, you learn that he's got a large pension as well as most of their substantial retirement savings in his RSP account. And you use this information to help Doug and Carrie, because all sorts of stuff might come up. Income splitting, long-term planning, certainly a referral. So there's lots of things that they seem interested. Doug seems very keen, and it looks like they could use some advice to fine-tune their plan. Maybe just saving isn't the problem for them, but getting the structure of their savings set up so they're on track for their plan is a big deal. So Lucinda's team suggested, how do the details of your work pension plan and your income be affected if you take early retirement? Can we learn more about your current pension plan? So kind of probing into the details of the pension. He's a keener, so he'll kind of go down that path. Also, it might be a great opportunity to actually have an advisor. If he's in in an older age group and he's getting closer to the retirement age, we'll have to talk to him about his options there as well. All right. So let's do a quick check-in. And hopefully everybody can see this. So the poll is open. So how difficult is it to explain the required amount of savings for retirement to the average Albertan? So that's that $1.39 million for Gloria, or the $2.74 million for Doug. How tough is that to explain to the typical Albertan? Is it easy? Is it not too bad? Or is it really tough to kind of get that point across? All right, we'll give you another couple seconds. All right, let's close this poll. And let's share those results. All right, well, a few of you think it's easy. But the majority of people say, yeah, it's not too bad, and hopefully with the great visualizations within the tool, it will become even more easy. But there's always somebody who finds it difficult, and sometimes that's kind of who you're talking to, and sometimes that's just about the subject matter. So never fear, we're going to practice how we say things and how we explain things when we get to the actual online advice training. All right, our final poll then, excuse my sniffles, is how much value do you think the average Albertan would get from us helping them with retirement goal planning? So is there going to be lots of value, some value, or really not much value? And again, thank you so much to the Mastery Committee who put together these polls, and will be doing so for the next session as well. It's the functionality we discovered, the hidden gem within this new version of video connecting software, and we love it. All right, so the poll is closed, and now the results are being shown. Yeah, about 3/4 of us say lots of value, so this is a great way to unlock getting Albertans to love us, which is one of our primary goals. And at least everyone thinks there's some value. So the interesting thing, if I think back to the beginning poll, whereas most people don't do any, but there's so much value there. So if we can really connect them from the value that they'll receive, whether that's, hey, having a strategy and how much that will help you, to the value of even the decisions they've made in that event. So Christy's saying, yeah, we're already doing this. It's just how many more people can we make happy, for sure. It's about getting to that scale and reaching every corner of the province and every Albertan, because the ones that interact with us, they get this value and they love it. I mean, I think about the dramatic increase in results this team has had, even since we just started working more and more with like a dream plan tool to visualize the advice that we were giving the clients. This is about us perfecting and honing this practice so that we can make things like retirement goal planning just that much easier, and while we layer on the plans of other types. So with that, a little bit of a sneak preview. I'm going to invite, I think Jeanette is going to copy and paste the link to the survey software that we're going to ask you to give us another snippet. I know it takes a couple minutes to complete, but she'll post the link into the chat dialog box. And what I'm going to ask you to do is give us some feedback again on this learning event. We're going to recorded it, so we're going to post it up there. But this, your feedback does help us so significantly adjust and improve. We've tried some new things today, and you let us know how we did. I apologize. My earlier technology glitches took me over a few minutes. I'm going to work really hard on getting better at landing exactly on an hour. I hope this session was valuable, and you've already received in your meeting invitation for next Monday's event the final set of module, which is planning for debt paydown goals and multi-goal scenarios. So enjoy that time with your individual reflection, your team time, and I'll see you next week at this time where we'll go over that as well. So before you leave, be sure to click on Jeanette's link that she's just posted in the left-hand side of your page. With having said that, I'm going to stop recording and wish you all a happy Monday.